This week on Let's Talk Texas, we'll discuss the latest in the Shelley Luther case and other Texans who have been pursued by police during the shutdown. Also, what's next for the plan to open Texas? And is MJ Hager really the candidate to challenge Senator John Cornyn?
This is the issue of this election.
Texas isn't great just by chance.
When you overtax, overregulate, and overlitigate, guess what? They're going to look for places to go.
The classic question in politics: are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? It's Texas.
We will never give up Texas.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All right, welcome to Let's Talk Texas. I'm your host, Jordan Overturf, joined by my co-host, RPT Chairman James Dickey. Chairman, how are you doing on this lovely Monday morning?
I'm doing great. I hope everybody had a fantastic Mother's Day weekend. Thank you. Congratulations and God bless to all the mothers out there and to everyone who said thanks over the weekend.
Absolutely. We got a lot of shout outs to get to this week. So I'll go ahead and let you kick it off. Who you got? Who are you sending props to this week, Chairman?
The biggest one's got to be the Texas Supreme Court for restoring sanity to a power situation that had been caused by a power hungry Democrat judge run amok.
Yeah, and we've seen kind of some of that power hungriness going around the state. It's not just there in Dallas, right?
Exactly. And in fact, it's in other places where we'll talk some more about the Laredo folks and other areas. Good news on all fronts, good news all across Texas. Also want to give a shout out to Congressman Michael McCall. He got put in charge of a congressional task force to get to the bottom of what China did and didn't do during this pandemic. And last, of course, to all the high school and college seniors who either will or already have attended their virtual graduation. That folks, seniors this year have been through a lot.
Yeah. I saw the A&M grad feed at Kyle Field, which I thought was a pretty cool way to do it. And a few districts have been lucky enough to get the chance to do in-person ceremonies. I know up in North Texas, Texas Motor Speedway is going to be open for a few commencement ceremonies. So shout out to the folks at Texas Motor Speedway for making that important milestone in life, right? I mean, walking the stage.
Absolutely.
Especially with Mother's Day weekend, no one more proud of their children walking the stage. I also have a shout out this week to the YRs who joined in on Saturday's National Day of Action, making calls in various races around the country. So shout out to all those folks who volunteered their time and they're getting started. They're ready for November.
Well, and it's working. I got a report from the team this morning. Last week, we had a 30% increase in voter registration recruiting calls that our team did over any prior week so far this effort. So the team is stepping up, volunteers are stepping up. It is really amazing.
Yep. And we have so much fun to have between now and November, Chairman. So we're certainly ready for it. Let's go ahead and get into it. So for anyone that doesn't know about this story and what happened, can you give us a rundown on Shelley Luther and everything that has happened since she kind of kicked off this fight?
Absolutely. Well, the short answer is Democrat judge in Dallas, Eric Moyer, he took it on himself to jail a Texas mother for trying to keep food not just on her family's table, but the table of the multiple salon stylists who work at her salon. And his decision was really outrageous and out of touch. In the same world and same time that criminals are being released for fear of contracting COVID, this judge insisted that she spend a week in jail for refusing to apologize to him for not bowing down and not doing what she needed. And this is just the latest in Democrat judges joining in with Democrat elected officials and being really out of control and unreasonable. And as Warren Nord, who is the SREC member, who is her lead attorney, he said, these are tiny tyrants, and they Democrat elected officials have over and over again released their tiny tyrant tendencies. And but fortunately, she had Warren as representation. He got it quickly up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court thankfully restored sanity, and Governor Abbott went ahead and explicitly amended his executive order so that things like this won't happen again. And I say things like this because it wasn't just what happened to Shelley Luther in Dallas. We also had a couple weeks earlier, Ana Isabel Castro Garcia and Brenda Stephanie Mata, who had been arrested in Laredo. And that Laredo situation was crazy. It was citizens, neighbors, reporting them for social media posts where they offered to do nail treatments and eyelash treatments in their homes. And so citizens had reported it, and the Laredo police force had a task force for enforcing these orders put in by the Laredo mayor. And surely the Laredo mayor and the Laredo police force have a lot more important things to worry about. And thankfully, the DA there just announced yesterday that he is not going to be pressing charges. He's not going to move forward with that. And so they are not facing the jail time that they had been facing. But, it just shows over and over again, we've got to take personal responsibility. We've got to work together. And especially as we are on the road to reopening Texas safely, we need to continue to do this. A couple of really important things. The Shelley Luther, the judge, Moye, he's a Democrat judge in a Democrat-controlled county. Recruiting candidates for Democrat seats is a very hard thing to do, especially judicial seats in a Democrat county. But we started over a year ago to recruit candidates. Excuse me. Excuse me. We started over a year ago to recruit candidates to challenge incumbent Democrats, and as a result of that effort, we now have a great candidate there.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that you had mentioned earlier, because a lot of people have been confused on the reporting on the story. They thought that she was originally she had been arrested and put in jail for opening the salon, which wasn't the case. It was a contempt of court. But when you look into the details of why the contempt of court, right, that a judge is asking for a citizen to apologize to them for taking legal constitutional actions, right? This is someone who should understand the very basic concepts of freedom, liberty, and independence, and the fact that a judge was sitting there asking this woman to bend the knee in a court proceeding is ludicrous, for one, and is definitely grounds for us giving him a solid challenge in November. And this isn't the only case of a judge or someone in the judicial system who has completely gone outside of their bounds. So I'm really hoping that that folks there in that judicial district are going to pay attention, that they are going to get informed about that Republican candidate, because this is where it starts, right? They're not. And then when we look at the county level, right, what's going on Harris County and Dallas County, Laredo, come on, you've got plenty of other illegal activities going on, but you've got time and money to put to a task force to get a couple ladies who are doing nails and eyebrow threading to take care of their families. Give me a break, right? John Stossel, where are you on this one?
Well, exactly. And like Attorney General Paxton said, no Texan should be punished for peacefully resisting an order which forced their business to slow down or their livelihood to be put at risk. And fortunately, that is the direction we are moving. We're moving that way quickly. I do want to be sure to give a very specific shout out. Jessica Voice Lewis is the candidate who is running against Judge Moye. She is at Lewis for Dallas. And I very much encourage everybody support Lewis for Dallas. Jessica was bold to step up. We've had lightning strike here. We got some attention on a race that normally wouldn't have attention. We don't have straight ticket voting anymore. This is a chance for the voters in all of Dallas County, because this is a countywide election, the voters in all of Dallas County to strongly step up and support Jessica Boyce Lewis and send a message, not just to Judge Moyer, but to all those tiny tyrants who have released those tiny tyrant tendencies, that voters in Texas will not put up with this.
Yeah, and Jessica, if you're listening, we'd love to get you on the Big Texas podcast to talk to why ours is all about criminal justice reform, what you want to do on the bench. Now, I do want to point out a specific thing, because this is a question that has been going around since all of this played out. How are Texans supposed to respond to what appears like the governor taking a little bit of the teeth out of his own executive orders?
Well, they should take this as a message that Texas is on its way to being open, but there is still plenty of bite in these executive orders. So people still can be fined, people still can risk their licenses. It's just plainly unreasonable to throw anybody in jail, and the governor recognized this. Being adaptable and willing to make changes, that's an appropriate sign. I was glad to see that from the governor. It's just the latest in a set of good things, but this really is the first step on reopening Texas.
And to be fair to the governor, he has allowed the counties to largely carry out this response on an individual level. But this was a time when clearly he needed to step in, not just for Shelley Luther, but for Texans across the state who are trying to just get by at this time, right? And they're not asking the government for a handout. They're just asking for the, ability to go about their daily lives like the Constitution allows them. But let's continue on this thread of talking about reopening the state. We know a lot more businesses are already opening back up. Do we have a sense of which businesses or industries remain shuttered? And for how much longer are we thinking they're going to stay closed, Chairman?
So the biggest ones that remain shuttered for now are gyms and fitness centers, non-essential manufacturers, office buildings, which start to reopen on May 18th. And bars. That's still, those are still the issues now. I expect to see continued opening up. But as this happens, hey, we believe in personal responsibility. At the end of the day, it is still incumbent on all of us to act responsibly. We're not, people are not required to wear a face mask, but they're encouraged to. They were encouraged to do social distancing. We continue to increase testing, and the worst thing that could happen would be for us to have gone through all this pain and then snap back too quickly and inappropriately and cause serious devastation. And so I think Governor Abbott has really done a good job, and the strike force team he's assembled in trying to balance this and trying to balance safety and freedom. And that, I think we saw that in his reaction last week.
Yeah, and we also have to make sure to include massage therapists right now are also shuttered. I've had a few conversations with those folks and trying to get clarity from TDLR. And right now, this is one of those situations where government kind of gets in its own way. And we haven't gotten clarity for these massage therapists other than to say that if a person has a prescription for a massage, then it's a medical necessity and they can go get a massage. Now, good luck finding, a place that's open. Like, it's this weird catch-22, but there you go. That's the government for you. And also shout out to the National Guard folks who have been doing those mobile testing sites. It's been really amazing to see those get set up so quickly. The amount of people who are engaged and taking part, if they have, I believe it's just a minimum of one symptom on the list of COVID, you can go get tested. So if you are concerned, if you're sick and you want to know if you can get tested, make sure you look up that information so you can find out more about those mobile testing sites.
Absolutely. And one of the important things for all of us to recognize is as testing increases, the number of reported cases is going to increase because we're going to find more cases. Thankfully, what we are seeing is, an increase in reported cases. We are still seeing deaths, sadly, from this, but we still see deaths every year from the flu. That's not, it's expected that we will continue to see deaths. We will, what we should not let anybody do is scare people by an increase in the number of reported cases, because naturally the increase in testing is going to cause that increase in reported cases.
Yeah, and I saw some reporting over the weekend that the mortality rate and the recovery rate is inverting in some places. So we're starting to see the recovery number rise, and the number of deaths are kind of starting to plateau. And also, I don't know if you saw the story today that there was actually a World War II veteran who at 91, I believe, recovered from coronavirus. And he said it was almost as close to going into the fight. So the greatest generation continues to show they have that grit and determination. We got a little bit of good news in terms of sporting. There was a UFC match bout over the weekend. I don't know if you saw that crazy fight, but also bizarre to watch an event like that without an audience, and there was a lot of conversation about that. Did it make it better? Did it make it worse? I think for the most part, people were just excited to see a sporting contest. Meanwhile, Aggie football is slated to come back. They've already said for sure bringing students back in the fall, and we're going to be ready to play football. Indy cars are going to return to Texas Motor Speedway next month. Are you surprised to see so many sports returning this soon?
No, and I don't think this fall is really that soon. And I think it's wise for people to plan to reopen. I know that has been our focus. We are planning. The president and the RNC have said we absolutely are going to have a national convention in Charlotte in August, and we at the RPT have been working very hard to figure out how can we safely do our step towards reopening, making sure that we continue to work towards an in-person convention in Houston in July. I took part in the memorial service for Jason, the fallen Houston Police Department officer, and it was the first police officer, fallen police officer funeral to take place in a church in the entire country so far this year after coronavirus hit. And so there was a lot of trepidation and a lot of, trying to figure it out and do some distancing and do some other things while having it. But we're Texans. We are going to work our way to getting back to whatever the new normal looks like. And so if we see an unexpected increase in activities, if we deaths and an unexpected increase in positive cases, we might have to back off a little bit. The governor's certainly keeping an eye on things, but we have got to take next steps to get back to life and to reopen the economy and to let people figure out how to deal with this.
Yeah, and the governor's gotten some high praise from the president over the Texas response, and Dr. Birx and all the folks there in DC. Do you have any highlights from that press conference that you think Texans should know about?
Sure. Well, the focus obviously on that whole meeting and everything else was Texas's coronavirus response and reopening. The president projected that Texas and the nation would be booming again very soon, and I believe he's 100% right on that. There's been an incredible amount of communication between him, but between Governor Abbott and the White House during this pandemic. I know from behind the scenes that they've had a lot of interaction. And they've also created surge forces. So, for example, there was a flare-up outside Amarillo in a processing plant. Well, there was a search team that was sent up there in coordination with the White House to make sure that got addressed pretty quickly. And Dr. Birx and others at the White House gave a big thumbs up to the Texas reopening plan. And the governor highlighted the fact that they encourage business owners to follow the orders, but they're not going to put owners behind bars, exactly as we saw with Shelley Luther. They're not only not going to do that, but not support that at all, even when a judge does that. We're opening Texas in phases. That's what the White House wanted to see. That's what the president and the governor are talking about. And we're working to accurately test and ensure we can continue to contain the spread and protect those most at risk, which the governor emphasized are those 65 and over.
Yeah, and it's been real interesting to see the different state responses and how governors have kind of found their position on this, right? You know, either they're jockeying to be against the president or they're laying a very heavy hand on their citizens. And now a lot of them are having to back off. Some of them are still delaying the reopening of businesses, but by and large, we certainly see that the citizens are making their voice heard around the country.
Absolutely.
Chairman,
To that end, Georgia reopened pretty widely 2 weeks ago, and they've seen no increase in deaths in Georgia as a result. Wisconsin had their primary election in person after most places had shut down, and Democrats had sent all sorts of warnings that that was going to be a travesty, and they saw no increases in deaths as a result of that. So we're seeing over and over again proof that reopening now is the right thing to do, and Governor Abbott and President Trump are leading on that, and they're doing a great job at it.
now I want to pivot to something that I don't know. Let's try talking politics for a little bit. When's the last time we did that, right, Sharon?
Exactly.
So there's a bit of a Senate runoff going on, and one of the darling candidates of the DCCC and all the folks in Washington is MJ Hager. Now, I know MJ Hager about as well as any citizen in Congressional District 31 can know MJ Hager. She's certainly polished herself a lot since that run against Congressman Carter. But I gotta ask you, she's not having a very strong show as a candidate for Senate. Is she, like, with all of these bona fides and all these people rolling off the carpet? It seems like she is a nothing burger.
Yeah, she really consistently underwhelms as a candidate. And I know that's got to just really rub Chuck Schumer raw, because he did a whole pass-through for fundraising ahead of the primary. So, Chuck Schumer got involved in the middle of a contested primary within his own party, and he raised $3 million for her, and she still didn't even get a quarter of the vote in that primary. So, he can't afford to be embarrassed by this. So no doubt he's going to do whatever he can do to try to make sure she wins. But she is last in nationally. The Democrat Senatorial Committee has a set of recommended senator candidates, and in those 7-8 races, I guess it's the 8 at least races, she is dead last by a mile in Q1 fundraising, and it's got to be hugely embarrassing for him. And I hope it is. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And she didn't have contraction before coronavirus. She sure doesn't appear to have any during, and Lord willing, she won't have any afterwards either. The only elected official in all of Texas to endorse her so far has been Veronica Escobar. Meanwhile, Senator Royce West is lapping her in Texas support, and former competitors are supporting him. 4 Texas members of Congress are supporting him, including Al Green and Eddie Bernice Johnson. 10 Texas senators, 40 or so state reps. In the meantime, MJ's got 1. And so, instead, where her support is coming from is where it always was coming from, and that's Hollywood. Patton Oswalt and Rosie O'Donnell and Alyssa Milano, these shining lights of intelligentsia and Texas politics. It's just Hollywood. The only other place she's got support is Chuck Schumer in DC. So she clearly doesn't have Texas's interest at heart. She is not building a base of support within Texas. She's been running for 3 years and seems to have less support now than when she was running for Congress. And I am confident that Texas voters, and maybe even Democrat Texas voters, are going to see through the fact that, you know, she is and was a flash in the pan, and that's it.
Yeah. And from my experience and watching her in that CD31 race, I mean, not much has changed. She's a little more polished. She got rid of the combat boots. You know, she's trying less hard to be witty or, you know, sarcastic in her responses. And I don't, other than people who rode the wave of Beto and, you know, everything that happened there, when you look at these fundraising numbers for a candidate that's supposed to be top tier, who's is going to be the one to help lead the charge in this so-called battleground state, right? She's doing nothing that you would expect of someone like if Beto were in the race, and there would be fire across this state. So I don't know what that campaign is doing, but it doesn't look like they have a winning strategy. Maybe they've been coming up one during the coronavirus. Who knows? But moving on to more important things, good news for Lieutenant General Michael Flynn last week. Can you give us the latest on what's going on there? And are we going to see any follow up on this?
Absolutely fantastic news for him. There had been a lot of requests for the president to pardon Flynn, and the president said, no, you know, he wanted to see Flynn exonerated, and that's what happened last week. The Department of Justice dropped the charges against him, and Attorney General Barr said that he had to. The justice and the rule of the law really compelled that, because what happened was President Obama and his FBI director, James Comey, and his corrupt cronies had completely slandered Flynn, had completely rigged this outcome. It was blatant, shameful abuse of power. I mean, this it's being referred to now as Obamagate, and this is significantly worse than Watergate. This is not people associated with the president breaking a law to investigate their opposition. This is the president's official staff abusing their official prosecutorial abilities to not just investigate, but to actually interfere with an elected official, an elected president. And so thankfully, their ruthlessly partisan attempt to tie Russia to the president, and in the process destroying the reputation of a lieutenant general and a war hero, all of that failed. Justice has finally triumphed under President Trump.
Yeah, to watch this story, and I mean, this is where it all started, right? Where the decline in Democrat sense and judgment started to tank all over their fury about President Trump, you know, and it started in the election. It has carried through nonstop. And now we are starting to see that that was just the first snowball, right? This thing has gotten bigger and bigger in terms of how brazen Democrats have gotten in their actions, in their limiting of citizens' ability to just, I don't know, be free, independent citizens, take care of their families, serve their country honorably, and to put together these prosecutorial teams for their agenda is just a gross abuse of power. So I certainly hope that there is going to be more follow-up from DC on this. I know conservatives are going to be putting the hammer down on this one. But let's turn to lighter topics. RPT State Convention. Where are we in the planning process, and are things ready to be the best convention ever, Chairman?
Well, it's a lighter topic because it's a cheery topic, because convention is a blast and it's an amazing experience. But it's not lighter in that it's less important. At convention, we elect our presidential electors, and without those 38 presidential electoral votes, the president, there's zero chance for a Republican presidential candidate to win. So the stakes are big, but the environment is a blast. And so in the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic, we knew that sticking to our original challenge, our original schedule would be just an unbelievable challenge, if not impossible. And so we consulted with the SREC, and with their vote, they approved the move of the state convention to July 16th to 18th. It's the absolute latest we could do it. It was practically miraculous. There was even a window where we could do that. We developed a proper method to safely move the local party, the county and Senate district conventions that were all scheduled to happen March 21st. We're able to make it so they could either safely hold it then or go ahead and move it. We've got a lot of those that are starting to come up now, some this Saturday, some the following Saturday. Keep an eye out on your local county conventions or your local county party's website. That's where they're going to have the information on those conventions. And it's going to be, we're going to make sure that those are continue to be held in a time and manner that focuses on the safety and the rights of our delegates. So we do this process perfectly. And to that end, week before last, we had an in-person SREC meeting, and Saturday we had an electronic SREC meeting where we were able to shorten the amount of notice required rules. So in the next 2 or 3 days, we're going to make some rules changes to really get all of this right and make it so that this happens and safely, quickly, properly. And again, the reason why that is so critical is because the delegates elect our party leadership and establish rules and platform for the next 2 years. They also select our nominees for delegates to the national convention, which actually officially makes President Trump our nominee, and they actually elect those electors for the Electoral College. And boy, it is so important. Please reach out to your local county party, find out where your convention is, participate in it. It is so important, and it is such a great thing. And it's one of the things that makes the Republican Party of Texas so special. You can also sign up to be notified from us on things going on just by emailing convention@texasgop.org. Ask to be added to our email list. We will get set up, or text convention to 72,000 and we'll get set up that way.
Yeah, I'm getting excited for state convention. I meet so many great people, so many great Republicans. A lot of folks who are actually new to the state also make their way to state convention. So it's a great opportunity for Republicans to come together. And as we get closer, as someone who was born and raised in Houston, graduated from the University of Houston, I got a few tips that I could share with some folks, some hot spots that you got to make sure you get to when you're down there, and hopefully everything will be wide open and we can just have a great time together doing all the work. Obviously we've got some important work to do, but let's have some fun too, right? It's been a crazy spring. Let's make summer a blast, and we can take a rocket ship all the way to RNC and Charlotte. So I have to ask, I've seen some great memes about this, Chairman. Murder hornets seem like bad news.
So is it murder hornets or Baskin bees?
I knew you were gonna get hooked. Yeah, I like Baskin bees. I think we have to talk to whoever in the entomological society to get that changed. But I've seen some crazy videos on this, right? Like, these maybe aren't as bad as they seem.
Yeah, they are intimidating thanks to just size, but I love the video of the praying mantis taking care of the murder hornet, and that it just once again shows prayer takes care of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, good job, Senator Cruz, making sure we keep the focus there. Also, holy cow, social media exploded. Elon Musk declares he has had enough. Do you think Tesla and all of Elon Musk's enterprises are going to come to Texas and join the SpaceX, all that great stuff he's got going on down here?
Well, yeah, it was fun to see him point out the contrast between California and Nevada and Texas. He referred to both as better places for them to operate, and that's one of the wonderful things about federalism, and that's why it's so necessary that we protect Texas. We if to have the last and only automaker from California leave for the same reason that so many other businesses left, because there are better, freer, more reasonable places to operate. And Texas continues to be that beacon to keep it that way.
Yeah, well, for all those hoping that Elon and Grimes and however you say that baby's name come to Texas, do know that he's going to come with a request of lawmakers when it comes to selling his cars here in the great state. But we'll continue to follow that. I'm sure it'll make huge news if he does decide to come to Texas. I'm not focusing on Nevada, Chairman. Right? We're positive energy. We want him to love the Lone Star State, SpaceX, and is it McGregor, somewhere up in Central Texas where you can hear the jet engines for miles around. One more thing I wanted to ask you about. Did you catch Chuck Todd just falling all over himself?
Oh my gosh. It was, it's crazy. The press gets so upset when the president properly refers to them as fake news. And yet you look at what Chuck Todd did, right? So he plays a clip of Attorney General Barr saying, what's the question was, happen after all this, and they play a clip of Attorney General Barr saying something to the effect of, well, history is written by the winners, and they stop there when literally the video had Attorney General Barr saying history is written by the winners, but the truth is this was a victory of justice and the rule of law. That was his answer. Well, Chuck Todd plays the first part, history is written by the winners, and he stops it there, and he talks to Peggy Noonan and says, how offensive do you find it that Attorney General Barr didn't even mention the rule of law or the importance of justice, which is literally what the Attorney General said in the video. And so Chuck Todd blatantly lied, like just straight up lied about what the Attorney General said in direct contrast to what they had on video. And their apology came via, a tweet or a press release, while the lie on video is on their main show. And frankly, he deserves to be fired for that, right? That was a straight up lie about what the Attorney General said. It is the definition of fake news. And I don't expect that he'll be fired, because there's literally zero accountability in the mainstream media for falsehoods when it comes to Republicans. But it is yet another proof, and then the mainstream media gets upset when they're properly called fake news. This was just blatantly a lie. And speaking of lies, all the releases on the Flynn stuff, there was also releases that Schiff had been sitting on and burying, where Democrat administration official after Democrat administration official, who in the press had been saying, we know for a fact there's Russian collusion, the proof will come out there's Russian collusion. When they got him under oath in front of the committee, they swore and said, no, actually, we have no proof. We just thought that was the case. So they straight up lied to the press, and Schiff sat on the sworn under oath proof buried it for as long as he could until the acting director of national intelligence said, I'm going to declassify this stuff and it's going to come out. Then he finally had to release it.
Yeah, the mainstream media or news journalists took a beating over the last week, and
they earned a beating. They earned it.
Yeah, and we didn't include it in the shout outs, but I'll do it now. Newly minted White House press secretary, of course, Kayleigh McEnany. Is that right? Yeah. So I caught the press conference where she pointed out to the news officials who were asking for the president to take back some of his previous comments and turning it on its head and saying, so is the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of these, news organizations, these storied news organizations, going to retract previous statements about false reporting on the virus, on the, the efforts, any response by the president. This is not a new thing. For folks who have not studied media like I have, it's what I went to school for. Yellow journalism is just the start of where this all began, right? And this is just a new form of that, of schlock reporting. I guarantee you that Chuck Todd thing, if I was a reporter and I clipped someone's quote like that, I would get reamed for it, right?
Absolutely.
And so I guess social media has now given individual citizens the ability to take that into their own hands and start holding the media accountable. Now, I will say not every journalist is Chuck Todd, right? Not every journalist is out there trying to push a narrative. There are good journalists out there who are working, digging, doing their research. They do fine reporting, right? Read their stuff. But at the same time, if we're going to hold politicians accountable and put them up to this, we're going to set this bar for them, then maybe we need to start holding the media accountable for the way they report, for the narratives that they encourage, and the way that they steer people into thinking a certain way, right? And the worst case is these headlines, right? I'm tired already of seeing headlines about the next coronavirus pandemic, right? It's a new trope that everyone's just trying to ride the coattails of this horrible situation. This is horrendous. And the media is just trying to find a headline that will get you to click and go on so they can make money from their advertisers, right? It's disingenuous. I know they got to make money. You got to do what you can, but maybe a little bit more integrity from the side of the folks who are leading these news organizations might restore some of the confidence that Americans have lost in them. So there's my soapbox. I don't know why I decided at the end. We were doing so good, right? Chairman, thank you again. Any last thoughts for us as we get ready to wrap up?
Please, anybody out there who is not already participating in helping us register over 100,000 new Republicans, we're over 85,000 now. It's 10K for 10R, 10,000 volunteers, 10 new Republican registrations each. Sign up by going to texasgop.org or texting 10K to 72,000. We need your help. You can help make a difference in Texas and make sure that we continue to be the shining light that we are.
Yeah, and go above and beyond. Sign up for that program so you can contact 10 people, but talk to your friends. I know you've got friends who are upset about the way this has gone down and they want to see better leadership. So especially if you are in one of these Democrat-controlled counties where they have been just laying a heavy hand of government on you, on your business, on your family, whatever the situation, text a friend, talk to them, get them registered to vote, because November is going to be crucial for the way this state is managed for the next 10 years. And if you want to see more on this reporting and stuff like that, you got to make sure and follow us, right? Make sure that you are listening to this podcast. Hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Talk Texas. You can follow the chairman, James Dickey, on Twitter at James Dickey. And for the latest on how we're going to keep Texas red, follow the Republican Party of Texas on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.